we talk about second cities, and the report is very focused on the African continent and second cities. But what can we say about second cities in South Africa? What has been the experience in the South African landscape when it comes to cities, and in particular, not the Joburgs of the world,
yes,
but the Durbans, the Cape Towns, the Bloemfonteins, and the like.
Okay, so I'm from the South African Cities Network. I'm Siphelele Ngobese. I work in the Inclusive Cities program, but in a broader engagement of our work, we obviously exist to support the big cities, the metros, so what are called the Category A municipalities, of which there are 8. So those are your Cape Towns, your Durbans, your Johannesburgs, the big players, right? But we have also shifted for some time now, actually not very recently, but over the years, we've recognized the need to engage with what we initially called secondary cities, but we had to fix the error of our ways, and now we refer to them as intermediary cities. And it's not about, they are being, little brother to the bigger cities, but we've come to recognize the critical role they play. So we say that metros, over and above the technical, the delivery of technical services like water, electricity, they have a bigger role to play. They have a bigger developmental object for their existence. They have a responsibility to lift, people out of poverty, to create sustainable livelihoods, to respond to global goals, around, sustainable development, Goal 11, unsafe, resilient, productive, cities. So there's, a much bigger reason for being than just the delivery of services, right? It has to do with undoing inequality, of which a lot is backed on the large metros. Intermediary cities are starting to be recognized as key pillars or backbones for such development as well. That they are not just also about, refuse collection on time, the provision of electricity, managing the load shedding schedule and stuff, but they also are starting to become anchors. And I think it arose in the input that you made at first, that they are becoming that critical anchor between the rural and the urban. And a lot of our urban policy, which our main urban policy is the Integrated Urban Development Framework, otherwise known as the IUDF, it speaks to the need to harness that rural-urban linkage for greater prosperity in South Africa, and that intermediary cities are a critical actor in so doing. And so they're categorized differently. So we've done this work of engaging with first what we call the secondary city, then what we now call the intermediary city. And so what is it? How is it different from a metro? And so the UCLG, or United Cities and Local Government, which is the global body of cities, defines an intermediary city by population as anything between 50,000 to about 1 million people. In South Africa, what we're finding is that they say currently about 69% of our national population live in the urban areas. And of that, about 24% are living in intermediary cities. While, the global comparisons, the intermediary cities are growing quite robustly in terms of population, we are finding that in South Africa, metros continue to be the big attractor for migration, and that's not differentiated by whether it's cross-border or internal migration. And so, whereas the population in what we call intermediary cities, of which currently I think there are 31, the population of those has dropped slightly from 27% to about 26.3%. So they are not growing robustly in terms of population. However, they are growing in a whole host of number of ways. And so a lot of them are seats of economies. You'll remember that in the apartheid spatial thinking, what are now regarded as intermediary cities were kind of created as overflow to kind of manage the movement of people from rural areas straight to the big cities. And so you have your Rustenburgs there, which were established as, mining, concentrated towns. And so that categorization kind of still factors. So you have intermediary cities, and within what you understand to be intermediary cities, you have subcategorizations by what they do. So some of them are manufacturing centers, some of them are mining centers, some of them, they are called cities with diverse activity. And then you have the ones that are categorized as low GVA, so low gross value add with high population. So that's kind of, the lay of the land in terms of the landscape of ICMs in South Africa.